I'm not an activist, and I'm also not a specialist on human rights like Prabhakarji or Kavita or even Kanchan, who has been involved in this kind of studies. But still, I'll try to say something about the changing scene today, the social scene today. And I think the young men and women like you should understand carefully what is happening in this country today. And that's very important. You don't have to go by the old notions, concepts, paradigms, but you have to think afresh about almost everything and how all this is being shaped, reshaped, determined, what is included, incorporated, what is left out, excluded. I think these are very important questions, and this is all not happening, in an evolutionary manner. This is being engineered. This is being done by political and social, cultural forces in the society. Now, I leave a paper which is in Hindi, and I was invited by IIP last year to make this presentation, and they have published it. That's the universe, and the title is Bharatiya Samajik Parivesh Ka Badalta Swarup. So you can photo state and distribute it. I think this covers. I don't have a spare copy, but some of these things which I will be talking are included in this paper in Hindi also. Now, today there are new divides, created divides, consciously created divides, new cleavages. A projection is of new man and new society, a new India, a new change. Now, and so you have to find out what is this new, how this new is being projected as new. Is there any newness in the new? That's the question. What is real? What is unreal? I think these are the questions. What are, and you, Prabhakarji was talking about, mentioned about inequalities. What are the new inequalities? What about the traditional, continuing, persisting inequalities? Have they disappeared, withered away? What are the new parameters? Somebody other day, a student of mine who is a senior professor at BHU, telephoned me, sir, I want to apply for such and such fellowship. And what should be the topic? What should I do? And I advised him to talk to Professor Jaipur, we were talking about. But then I told him that keep this in mind, that you are applying for such and such institute. And Jaipur, who is a good friend of mine, also advised him, select some topic on culture, on traditional culture, if you want to avail the fellowship. Change yourself. Now, this is the kind of situation, particularly with regard to higher education, has come out practically, and I do not know how to explain this, but you have to understand this, that caste system, I have been writing on this quite frequently, is a system, I am underlining, has almost disappeared. But caste persists almost in every way, possible way. And why it persists? Because people make manipulation for its persistence. Don't bother about the system as such. Because the system is social relations, interdependence of groups, certain rules and regulations regarding collegiality, commensality, division of labor, etc., etc. Now all that has practically disappeared. But then caste persists altogether in a different way without system. Now, and who are responsible for the persistence of this word caste? That's a very important aspect. Now, and through this, there is a reproduction of inequalities. I mean, maybe traditional inequalities have become weak, or the rigidities are no more, but the new inequalities have emerged, and politically and socially engineered, manipulated inequalities. I think that is the question which is directly related to human rights. And so you have to find out where is human in all this process. Human does not mean the rights, what we call fundamental rights only. Where is that human? And so I think the present social context is quite complex. We are not completely out of it, of the traditional setup, traditional arrangements, and we have at the same time, in a very big way, in a strong way, in a manipulated manner, the new realities which have been imposed upon, which have been created. Now, and therefore, if you look at why I say it is complex, I think I may be wrong, but in the name of the caste system, there is casteism. In the name of religion, there is communalism. I know the distinction between religion and communalism. And in the name of family, there is nepotism. And I'm not saying that it has started in the last 3 years or 4 years. I mean, there were earlier also many people who talked of nepotism, openly he advocated nepotism, practiced nepotism. It's not a question of one political party or party in power at one point of time or other point of time. Now, so all these are in place of caste system, religion and family, your casteism, communalism and nepotism. So it is not the systems which are there, but these are some kind of devices, mechanisms, manipulations, which have been there, which have been created. Now, and I think, and because of this, there is the reproduction of status and power in the society. And so what's more important today in the present context is family background. Who is your father, parents, your caste rank, not the caste system as such, your father's occupation, job, expertise, networks, knowing a minister or MLA or politician or big man in the society or someone, network. And all of this, facilitate you towards something kind of action or social mobility. So because of this, there are new status groups, new classes and new individuals and under the new political setup. Now suddenly people become very important. They were nowhere, but they are called protectors, called taking action against without going into the reality, whether it's a genuine, real or not real. All this is happening almost every day. Now, so therefore you have to think what is this direction of social and cultural change. That's important. What is this direction? Where are we going? And so, you look at these self-appointed groups and individuals, as I said, protectors and guardians of cultural and social values, so-called social and cultural values. They are who have given them this right to have this kind of create this kind of a situation. And it's happening every day. It's happening every day. And it's not that, and we don't hear anything in terms of some kind of remedial measures coming concretely in the society. And therefore you ask questions about the state, about the governance, about the party, political party in power. All these questions become important. Now, I'm not saying that this had been there only because of this. Also at the same time, a new class, and particularly a new middle class, has emerged, is in the making in both public and private sectors. And this middle class is very different from the middle class of the colonial times, but also somewhat very different when we got our independence in 1947. That was mainly in the public sector, and also because of the English education and the new bureaucracy, the new constitution. Now, the present day middle class, for example, in the private sector is quite conspicuous now, a phenomenon. About 10% of the middle class is in the private sector, approximately, and coming mainly from the processes of globalization and liberalization in the private sector. Now, what is this class? What is the nature of this class? What kind of activities they are doing in the society? What kind of? So ultimately, I think the crux of the present situation is status and power. Status and power as key determinants. And it is not that ultimately it boils down to this only, that who has what and how one has it, how much one strength one has acquired in the society. Now, and this, I recall a study which I am quite fond of mentioning, that, this kind of a problem of education leading to reproduction, quality education I mean, leading to reproduction, was a big problem in France, very serious problem in France. That generation after generation, the people from the same families would occupy positions of power, authority in the professions, almost in every walk of life. Those families selected 1,000, 2,000, 500,000 families would dominate in the country. And this was through education. Education was a means of, not means of change, social, but means of reproduction. And he called the superior normal, the famous educational institution. For 5 generations from the same family, students get admissions. They are privileged. Once privileged, privileged forever. Somebody has recently said that we have dynastic democracy in India. A book has come out, I think in 2017 itself. You cannot say it is not democracy. And you also cannot say it is not dynasty. Dynastic democracy. 5 generations after elections, the father, the son, the grandson, and the relatives, and so on and so forth, elected, and people vote for them. And therefore, I think status and power, and this has to be managed generation after generation. So redistribution of societal resources, I think, and it's not monolithic, not that all people who share the resources are at the same level, at different levels, in different ways. And so therefore, ultimately, I think our paradigm must take into consideration today income, occupation means status of occupation, and entrepreneurship, the nature, the extent, the level of entrepreneurship. It's not that a small shopkeeper is not that way. Education, and that means quality education. And land ownership, intelligence, property, class consciousness, awareness, and lifestyle. All these main considerations. And I think lifestyle is particularly how one lives and how much one spends on. And that so-called cultural capital is not a good word, but is encased into political power. This is happening. There are a lot of people spend so much money because they have acquired money, they have money, and they spend on something or other, maybe marriage, maybe festival, maybe some occasion, and then they can become, create networks and become politically influential. Now this is happening from politics to economic and cultural, social, from cultural, social to economic, political, etc. It both ways it works out. Now, and therefore it becomes very complex socio-cultural context. Now, and this results into some kind of atrocities on the weaker sections of the society. This happened in Gujarat in 2016, very tragic incidents, and this happens almost every day. It's happening. You look carefully, half a dozen newspapers, and you find 10, 15 stories in different parts of the country. Now, you know, despite all the legislations, everything, Khawf persists, and it has spread out in other states also, from Haryana. And even there was a time when one Congress MP supported it, industrialist, Jindal. The Huda chief minister supported it. It's both right. Now, and it's a violation of human rights. The young men and women who want to spend their life are tortured and even murdered, killed, or forced to commit suicide. Now, I think this cow reference I made, and how many incidents I were to enumerate, I think more than 100 might have taken place by this time in the last 2-3 years. And therefore, this is a country where extreme inequalities are there. Somebody has written the other day that nearly 80% people are around BPL, below poverty line, or around that in the country. Around 80%. It's a big chunk. That last year there was some report, 193 Indians earned 4.54 lakh crore rupees. Only 193. And 2.2 crore taxpayers did not earn that much. You see the gap. Your income taxpayer, more than 2 crores, would not have that much income as only 193 families have. Now, extreme inequalities. Therefore, one has to think of our situation very, very carefully. And all this is because of unequal access to resources. Unequal resources access is because people are not equally capable. If all of you are equally capable, then this is fair justice. Everybody has a chance to compete with. But if you don't have this equality at the ground level, on the surface, you cannot compete with those who are privileged. You cannot compete with one who is qualified to seek admission in a Hindu college or Miranda House or some other college, or Lady Sri Ram College in Delhi. Even for a university like JNU, where I spent almost all my life, you know, besides the reservation categories, you know, there's a very tough competition. I do not know what is happening to JNU. I'm really distressed. I wrote a piece also last year in Economic and Political Weekly. India needs JNU, not the government needs JNU. Because a young boy and girl in Bihar, Muzaffarnagar district, or in Rajasthan's Churu district, parents would think that their children could get admission in JNU and have a career. Now those who are sitting in JNU or in Shastri Bhavan in Delhi, education ministry, would not think of that. And this is why JNU is being almost destroyed today, unfortunately. Other day, 3 student representatives were suspended to participate in the Academic Council meeting, which is as per law. Now, I was the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dean, had everything there practically, and taking VC also at times. We had never allowed voting in the Academic Council or in the Executive Council, the governing body of the university. Never. Even we extended the meeting of the Academic Council for the 2nd day, for the 3rd day. Discussed, deliberated, and finally we had consensus. That was JNU. Now there were 10 security guards, like bouncers, and they stopped the student representative, a girl, who is General Secretary of the Students' Union, stopped entering in the Academic Council meeting. Male guards. Day before, I think, 3 days. Now, so you see, it is a violation of human rights. Why, you know, it has several dimensions. It's not just physical violence. It's all sorts of torture, and which is not covered in the Constitution as such. You cannot have everything in what you call fundamental rights. Human life is very complex. So, friends, therefore, you have to think of unequal access, unequal capabilities, and this is because of reproduction of inequalities in the society. And state is responsible that why there is a reproduction of inequalities. It is the state's responsibility. I am not talking of political parties. Political parties are instrument of the state. And therefore, you know, even I read an interview, not interview, a bite of a professor when these wrestlers received the gold medal or silver medal or something. Then somebody went to them and asked them about their class. Why do you want to know the class of the players, class of the professors, the class of the scientists, businessmen, political leaders? I wrote a book for NCRT long back, 87, for class 12 students. Somebody recently, last year, early, wrote a piece that I'm not saying anything, but that he counted out of the 15 members who were members of the review group, what were their class. When was the need for that? I didn't know about the class of the people. Only after he wrote a piece that it is all upper caste sociology being produced, and this book is also one of the examples. I mean, that is also casteism. The class of mind here, as somebody has talked of, and which is not suddenly has come, it was created by the British. And that's a different debate altogether. Therefore, I think you have to think of this 54% of capital is controlled by the selected few millionaires, crorepati's of this country. 54%. And he bound them on fingers, as I said. Now, I think this is happening because of loopholes in the law. Also, the government of the state not being interested in creating new institutions. And then institutional breakdown also. There is institutional crisis also. I mean, you know, after the other day we read in the newspaper that somebody, Rajan, has been appointed committee, of high power committee chairman to review the education in the country. After 3.5 years. Now, and who are the members? Most of the people, maybe one or two, are unknown people in the public life, public sector. This is happening in higher education in particular. Now, so loopholes in the law, no willingness to create new institutions for the common good, for the common people, and if the state does not review the institutions, persisting ones, does not think of creating new institutions, I think human rights violations would continue. And so therefore, manipulation, dominance, and loopholes in law, three would create a situation of violation of human rights. And I think I think the other phenomenon which in the present social context is important, you know, I'm not saying that this action should be taken or this should not be taken. That's not the question. But we are who are educated, so-called educated, we are aware, enlightened, now must think of that what is happening in this country. I think sometimes I feel that it is all activities surrounding around revenge in politics. You know, opposition versus those who are in power. I mean, and probably, there's some kind of a very crude expression of this comes out. And so institutions of the state are being appropriated for this kind of a situation. And this is happening, but nothing is there. And the result of this, that there is no constructive politics as such. This simple oppositional politics, that this is your time This is not their times. They and we. You know, it's a clear kind of a thing. They means enemies, we means we in power. Now, I think we are all citizens of this country. Creation of institution for citizenship is important. Not creation of institution for voting only. 18 years is okay. But voter is not a citizen. Voter is not necessarily not a citizen. Citizen who understands. I'm not a great admirer of America, but if you go to a institution where children play football or swimming or they are doing, parents take responsibility. They offer responsibility for doing something. Look after this activity, that activity, and children have their time. Since if you violate something, then you are assigned some duty and you follow it 100%. There is no question of violation. No citizenship has come about. The realization that I am responsible. Now, is the state not responsible for creation of this kind of a situation? Where only violations. You cannot walk on the road, even including Delhi. Comfortably you cannot walk, even in the posh areas. Overtaking from wrong side is quite common. So therefore, suicide, rapes, murders, all these are taking place, and all these are, I think, violation of human rights. We have to think of how individual and family are shaping in the present situation, how equality and inequality coexist. We have to think of status and power, and I go by Amartya Sen's 3 R's: reach, range, and region. I think we must analyze with regard to every individual, every family, who has the reach, what is the range, and what is the region. Also, I suggest that the young men and women should think of what people have been saying about this. They are not so seriously heard, but still, I think what Ramchandra Guha has written in the famous book India After Gandhi, if we understand the 4 R's, again R's, 3 R's and 4 R's, and 4 R's are rights, riots, reaches, and rulers. You understand these 4, and I think you understand why there are violations of human rights. Who are doing it? Why they are indulging in this kind of crime? Which may not be crime as per the law of the land, but this crime. Exploitation is crime, moral crime, but people are exploiting other people. So riots, reaches, rich people, and rulers. And rulers right from the village up to the national parliament. And lastly, I would say that since you are young and some of you are law students, a good number of them, you are in the universities, private, public, all that, but you must see that what is happening to higher education. That's my personal opinion. What is happening to higher education, whether it's private or public sector. I don't want to refer to the situation in Rajasthan where nearly 20 people are behind bars because of 3 reasons. One is leaking out the question papers. The third is accepting payment without teaching, and the third was what?
Corruption and selection.
Selection was in Jaipur. The third was something else here in Rajasthan University, and I wrote a piece in Bhaskar. Then I write for the Hindi newspaper here from time to time, and these are the questions which young people, you must think, hesitate. And I think at least I salute the JNU students in Delhi that they don't keep quiet, even in this kind of worst situation in the country. They make their point. they don't stop. And they don't stop because I know I was there at the time of emergency, and we did not allow the police to enter in JU campus in emergency. I kept DP Tripathi locked in a hostel. I was warden of the hostel. And once, without my knowledge, he went out and he was caught and sent to jail. So you have to think of what is happening to higher education very seriously. If you feel that yes, something wrong, I mean that the courses, new courses were approved in the academic council by bullying the majority of the members of the academic council. One after the just approved, other day again. So friends, I think our present socio-cultural context is very, very complex. There are factors. I think behind this, I think the main thing is the political power. And then to gain some kind of recognition, status, identity in our present situation. So with these few observations, which I just in the morning I looked at and I thought this is relevant. Thank you so much.